Labour's October budget risks a return to austerity, campaigners warn amid reports of a major spending cuts. We're going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that Labour's October budget risks a return to austerity, campaigners warn amid reports of a major spending cuts. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves is being urged to borrow to invest and amid claims that billions of pounds in cuts to investment is planned. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So, there have been those who are on the side of Labour, who are the staunch defenders of Labour, who are saying that this is not austerity, there is no austerity coming, and that the arguments and the cases that they're making from some cuts that they are doing is because of a 22 billion pound black hole left by the Conservatives. And from what most reporting and from my understanding is that this so-called black hole or deficit or whatever you want to call it, guess who we owe it to? We owe it to ourselves. It's not like that's the way this is. We own our own currency. It's basically something that the government kind of technically owns. This it kind of reminds me of back in 2010. When the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats took over, and they said that we had to make cuts and we had to make big decisions, and we're all in it together. We have this deficit that we need to get down, and that was what it was put out. That we had to deal with this austerity, that we had to implement austerity because we had to cut back because we have to deal with this massive deficit that the UK government has got. Yep, that was what the Conservatives government had, working with coalition with Lib Dems at the time, and they kept imposing, and they were imposing that over years and years and years, cutbacks after cutbacks. Most reports you find now from 2010 to 2024 is that our deficit has actually gone up. So the deficit was never cleared. It was a lie. And this whole idea that we have to clear this black hole, and there may be talks of reports of perhaps spending cuts coming. This is also lies. This doesn't. I don't mean the lies as in the cuts. What I mean is this black hole thing. I don't buy it one bit. I really don't. Did I say before going in that there would be skeletons in the closet from the Conservatives? Absolutely. And yes, Labour do have to clean up the books and balance the books and whatnot. But should it come off but any kind of clean up a mess that the Conservatives left, who should be paying off the back of it more than anybody? It should be the highest, those with the broadest shoulders. That is what Sir Keir Starmer said. He said that those with the broadest shoulders are the ones who should be paying the burden. And what have we had so far? So we had a winter fuel allowance, the winter fuel payments. Now, it will hit some wealthy pensioners, yes. And the pension credit has gone up as a means to get some people on board with that, to help mediate that, yes. But as there has been reports and there have been many people who have spoken to media and said so, many people will be worse off as a result of this decision as well. Not everyone can meet the pension credit threshold. So, and they're saying that they're having to do this because of the £22 billion black hole, is absolute BS. Because there are many other ways they could raise the money without touching the elderly. And I've said this as well, that this is because they're the elderly and the pensioners. They don't give a damn about them because that's not their voter base. The voter base for most pensioners and elderly people are Reform or Conservative. There are some Labour voters out there, absolutely, but most of them would be more right wing because of the media, the kind of media that they grasp in, the likes of GB News, the likes of the newspapers that they kind of read, like the Telegraph, Daily Express, the Daily Mail, those kind of papers. So they're kind of entrenched into that kind of narrative, aren't they? Really, to be fair. So they feel that they can get away with this, which I think I think it's shameful, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. I know some people have tried to argue that the way it's come across is it's not as bad as it looks, and I'm just thinking, this is the thing. People need to understand, for those who are defending Labour, there is no indications whatsoever that this cut was coming from Labour. There are no indications that this was going to happen whatsoever. Now, as far as the two-child benefit cap goes, they never said anything about removing it when in the manifesto either. But they know that there are many campaign groups out there who say that if you want to help deal with child poverty, removing the two-child benefit cap would be a massive help for that. And this is despite the fact that there has been polling that still many people are in favour of the two-child benefit cap. There was one comment I saw on my channel earlier that somebody made the claim that that obviously after you have two children, the rest of the children are worse off. Yeah, because of the system that that is in place. If people actually generally want more British jobs for British people, they would want the two-child benefit cap removed, because then it would allow British families to have more children as a result of it. And not only that, help reduce child poverty as well. It will not completely abolish child poverty, but it will go a long way. So that's something that I don't know whether it will come in the budget or not, but that's also another thing that's kind of hanging over Labour's heads as well. It's not to say that Labour haven't had some good policies, and I'm hoping that there are some good stuff in this budget as well. But if there is a lot of spending cuts coming, if there are reports of lots of spending cuts, and their consistent argument is about this £22 billion black hole, it's austerity. It's blatant austerity if they are doing major cuts that are going to affect the people on the lowest of incomes, the middle class people. If we are being affected by major cuts that the government are planning to do, which is obviously rumoured with window of what coming in this budget, this is austerity. This is blatant austerity. They're just not going to call it that. It's just going to be called something else, because then you're going to be told, we need to do this for now, and then things will come around the corner. Yeah, so I take that on board when I would say, for those who really want, and I really mean this. I hope this is all wrong and Labour don't impose some kind of austerity, and that any kind of changes that they make, it affects the richest and the wealthiest in society end up paying more. That's what I generally hope. The middle and the low incomes are not affected, and they make changes to make their lives better in the long term, not just obviously short term, but long term as well. But we'll see, won't we, on that budget. So here's what Ballantyne's had to say. There are renewed concerns that Labour's first budget this month could trigger a fresh round of austerity cuts as campaigners urge the Chancellor to borrow to invest in rebuilding Britain's public services. It comes as The Guardian reports that despite Rachel Reeves' conference speech promises to boost investment and stimulate growth, cabinet ministers are being told to find potential cuts amounting to billions of pounds from infrastructure projects over the next 18 months. According to government sources cited by the paper as part of October 30 spending ministers have been asked with showing how they could reduce their annual capital spending, i.e. infrastructure and investment plans, by up to 10%. It is a stark contrast to suggestions last week that the Treasury is set to change its fiscal rules to allow the government to borrow to invest in job-creating industries and infrastructure. Unions such as Unite welcome the reports. Both Reeves and Prime Minister Keir Starmer in their Labour conference speeches last week ruled out a return to austerity. But the narrative conflicts with some reports since plus the billions of pounds of cuts already planned. The Equalities Trust has launched a petition calling on the government to reject austerity measures in the October budget. Addressed to Starmer and Reeves, it argues that over a decade of austerity under Conservatives pushed public services to their limits and left communities at breaking point. It points to recent government decisions such as cuts to the winter fuel payments and $5.5 billion in other spending cuts this financial year as indications that the pattern of austerity may continue. Many of the initial savings this year come through cancelling long-delayed Conservative transport and hospital projects from the last government. However, the Chancellor has already penciled in £8.1 billion in savings next year too. Challenging the fiscal rules, Labour has signed up to which they claim prevent public investment. The petition argues that these constraints were made up by politicians and badly designed. Those dictate the government's debt must be falling a share of the economy by a fifth of the budget forecast. During the general election, the Scottish National Party and others warned that Labour sticking to its fiscal rules would lead to more austerity, with the Independent Institute of Fiscal Studies forecasting £18 billion worth of public sector cuts by 2030, or real terms cuts to public investment of 2.6% per year over this parliament. The Equality Trust has joined unions and progressive think tanks in urging the government to rule out more austerity and tax the rich to boost spending. Sangi Nicholas, co-executive director of the Equality Trust, told Byline Times, "Here are three things that are breaking records right now: monthly temperatures, food bank use, and shareholder payouts. We all understand that our system is broken. It's also very clear that you cannot solve this crisis the UK is trapped in without investing in people. We've been here before. Declaring that austerity is over and will not somehow exempt you from the efforts of cutting investment. It would be a disaster to continue the policy that has encouraged a massive inequality. People need warm, safe homes to be able to access healthcare, education, and opportunities, and to live in communities that can thrive as a sustainable, equal society." The SNP Westminster Deputy Leader, Pete Welshman MP, said in Scotland would be appalled at the miserable choice at offer at Westminster, claiming the two biggest UK parties were wielding to austerity cuts, Brexit, and long-term decline. On one hand, we've got Free Gear Keir and his Labour ministers lining their pockets with more than £80,000 in freebies while imposing austerity cuts on the rest of us. On the other hand, we have a dreadful Tory leadership contest with bottom-of-the-barrel candidates that make Boris Johnson look competent by comparison, he added. Last week, the Unite Union leader, Sharon Graham, said, "This country can't take a further round of austerity. Our public services have been cut to the bone and they are crumbling. Ruling it out is totally the right decision, yet actions speak louder words. This commitment must mean no more public sector cuts." According to the Equalities Trust, the rules prioritise short-term spending cuts over long-term investment, trapping the UK in a vicious cycle of cuts, equality and decline. The charity cites economics who maintain that these rules can be rewritten to allow for greater public investment. Reeves is reportedly considering changing how government debt is measured to free up room for extra investment, while also sticking to Labour's official pledge to get debt falling. The petition also highlights the stark wealth of equality in the UK, as the ultra-rich amassed staggering amounts of money over the past decade, particularly during the pandemic and the cost of living crisis. Research by the Equality Trust found that billionaires' wealth increased by over 1,100% since the 1990s and grew by $150 billion between 2020 and 2022. And meanwhile, companies like British Gas and Big Six banks have been making record profits, and shareholders' dividends hit an all-time high last quarter. A recent report from Tax UK Justice argued that $60 billion could be raised annually in closing loopholes affecting the wealthiest, such as limiting reliefs on inheritance tax and pension contributions. The petition calls on the Chancellor to increase taxes on income from the wealth, close loopholes and exploited by the richest, introduce windfall taxes on the profits of big banks and oil and gas companies, and implement an annual wealth tax of 2% on assets over £10 million. The petition also highlights the massive costs of austerity and society, citing research from the London School of Economics, the LSE, found that 190 excess deaths caused by austerity, and the Institute for Fiscal Studies calculate that failing to invest and poor growth lead to an economic gap of £11,000 GDP per head as of June 2024. Sangi Nicholas added, "Public support is very clearly behind investing to achieve Labour's goals and taxing the rich to help fund it. The fact that lobbying from the richest looks set to prevent it shows how entrenched our inequalities of income, wealth and power is." This again written by Josh Monroe of Byline Times here. Yeah, the rich and the rich and the wealthy have their teeth very much synced into mainstream politics, into mainstream media. That is absolutely no question about it. If you think that Labour are not having conflicts of interest by some of the rich and the wealthy in society, you are wrong. They are definitely being influenced by this. And if cuts do come, it is austerity. It is austerity from this Labour government, and they will be branched as no different than the Conservatives when it comes to what happened over the last 14 years when it came to the cuts and rounds. I know Labour supporters will not like that, but if they do go down that road, they will be branded as that. Now, obviously, think very carefully. Obviously, we have to look very carefully when the budget comes of what exactly the wordings that Rachel Reeves says and how it's implied as well. It's going to be very interesting how it is worded, how she words whatever she's planning as well. But yeah, while she's saying there's no return to austerity, doesn't mean that there isn't going to be cuts either. It is a grave deal of concern, and I generally hope that it's all wrong and that they are going to put their hands in their pockets, because they need to invest. The state has to invest. You cannot rely on the private sector to do everything for us. It just doesn't work. It's not worked for 14 years. You can't expect private businesses to put their hands in their own pockets unless they are guaranteed a profit in return. That's why the state needs to put its hand in its pocket. They need to do that, and they can't stop being hesitant to do that. And I really do hope they do put their hand in their pocket. What do you guys think? What do you guys make of this piece from Byline Times? Do you think we are returning to another level of austerity by Labour government in the budget? What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and more on this down in the comments section below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further and support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.